Hey buddy, it's your old friend Scott, and this is Let's Talk Tabletop. I'm just chilling out here in my rulebook for it like I like to do sometimes. How was your week? Hawaiian spaghetti? Ugh, I'm gonna pass on that one. Oh, how was my week? Well, we got a letter from my buddy Kirk at letstalktabletopscott at gmail.com, and he was wondering if I could give him any advice on how to pick the best rule set, because he seems to go from rule set to rule set, and he can't just stick with one. So, let's read his email, and then I've got 5 different ways to determine if a rule set is good for you before you have to buy the rules, etc., etc. So let's dig into his email. He writes, "The reason I'm writing in is because of hobby apathy. It's so easy for people to get to a burnout level of their game of choice for any number of reasons, and I think it's more common than is talked about. The piece of this that I'm trying to reconcile right now is the sort of ongoing search for the perfect game or experience. I have dozens of rule sets, both self-published indie creators and big company products. And there's always things I like and things I don't about any game system, and when I get a new game, I'm really excited about it. I play a few games, really enjoy it, and then find myself browsing the web for what to try next. I do love the exploration of a new set of rules, but something, I think, goes deeper than just exploring a new system and being ready for the next." He continues, "Anyway, I thought it might be worth sharing. Not sure if others feel the same, but I'd sure like practical tips myself on how to overcome this. It's hard to just stop looking at new things. It's almost like an addiction in and of itself. For myself, one option I'm trying to focus on, which might be a good separate topic too, is to focus on independent creators where I know who's getting the money I'm spending. Don't buy anything off of Amazon or Miniature Market. That money is going to bigger companies. It's more valuable to me to find creatives who I like what they do, and I like their attitude at a personal level, and support them with that money instead. Thanks, Kirk." Well, thank you very much for your letter, Kirk. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys want any advice or want to give any advice about the tabletop hobby, you can reach me at letstalktabletopscott at gmail.com. So, Kirk, I've been there, as you can see. I've got many different rule sets, and none of them were just right for me. Everyone's going to be different, and finding just the perfect rule set for you is going to require some filtering of what you are exposed to. You can't just buy every single game system out there, right? Or I guess you could, and maybe you have, and maybe I'm close to it, but you're not supposed to, okay? So, what I do personally is I have a filter system so that when I see a new game, I research it a little bit, and if it doesn't check off at least most of the checkboxes, I just don't buy it, and that saves me a lot of money and a lot of time. So, let's dig in with the 5 ways to determine if a game is good for you just right off the bat. Number 1 on this list is it solo, or is it versus, or is it co-op? A lot of people don't play solo. Of course, I love solo gaming, and I love versus, and I especially love co-op. So I'm pretty easy on this topic, but if you are very anti-solo, and you see a solo game, boom, out the door. That's not going to be for you. You already know you don't like solo. That is the very first filter for this, and it's a super easy one, because all of them will say 1 to 4 players, or a solo adventure, or something like that, and you can easily get down to the bottom of that. So, if you play socially, you're going to have to figure out exactly what rule set your group is willing to try. So maybe you make a list of a couple different things, and then see if that floats any of their boats, and go, hey, what about this? How about Malifaux? How about Infinity? How about Warhammer? How about whatever, Brutality, right? And then you can see what they're interested in, and then you can go further down the mechanics and further down my list to see what you all enjoy. So obviously, if you're picking a game to play socially with your friends, and this is not going to be a game that they're going to play, knock that off your list. You're not going to do that one. Number 2 on this list is the format of the game. Now, is this going to be a game that you absolutely have no interest in because it uses only cards, such as Magic the Gathering? Or it uses only miniatures, such as Warhammer or any of the other miniatures games? Or maybe, just maybe, it's got a strong app presence, like you have to download this app and use the list builder, or you have to download the app and use a virtual DM or something like that for your game. Some formats of games are just going to be a no-go for you and your players. So, me personally, if I have to download an app, I'm much less likely to do it. Call me an old man if you want, but that's just the way it is. And even though I do like Magic the Gathering, that is the only card game I play. So anytime that I see another card game, such as Flesh and Blood, I'm just not going to try it. I already have a card game. I'm not getting into any more card games, or Pokemon or anything like that. Although I do have to play Pokemon periodically with my children, but that's just because they like it and I want to do something with them. Now, with those two out of the way, the third one is, what are the mechanics of the game? If you've passed those first two hurdles, now this is a big one. The mechanics of the game, such as Malifaux. Malifaux does not use dice, it uses cards. Some people love that, and some people hate it. I did not care for the card mechanic of Malifaux. I did enjoy my time playing Malifaux, and it's certainly not a bad game, but that mechanic is just not right for me. I like to roll dice, and most people do. So if it's going to be something like that, where it substitutes dice rolls for something else, a lot of you are just going to check out. It's just the way it is. Or if a lot of your gameplay involves tokens, and I don't mean a couple tokens, I mean a bajillion tokens, such as, that's the reason why I'm turned off by a lot of board games, is because a lot of board games nowadays are extremely intricate, and they've got a million little chits and little tokens and the minute I look on the back of a box and I see hundreds of tokens laid out, that does not spell fun to me personally. That spells, oh my god, I'm going to have to bag these tokens. I'm going to have to try not to lose them. If I stop in the middle of my game, then I can't just leave my tokens out. My kids are going to grab my tokens and mess with them. Like, that's just the way it is. Or if you have a cat, or if you have literally anything, you can't just leave your game out unless you have a designated game space. So, for a lot of people, a lot of tokens or the card mechanics or whatever is just not their method of play that they want to do. One thing like the initiative roll in Age of Sigmar turns a lot of people off. A lot of people are like, I don't want to not know if I'm going first next turn. And that does turn a lot of people off. Another thing that bothers people, and it really bothers me, I get over the Age of Sigmar initiative roll. It's my least favorite part of that game, but I deal with it. But such as the games such as Bolt Action, I believe, where you throw dice into a bag and you can only activate your people when you draw one of your dice and it's very random, I don't like that. I like to know that you go, I go, you go, I go, and I want to know what order I'm doing that in. So you've got to really decide whether or not the game mechanics are something that you can really get behind. Number 4 on this list is customization. Can you customize your characters? Can you stat them out the way you want? That's a big deal for me personally, because I don't like being told how I have to play my characters, and I love the narrative of creating my own characters and my own backstory and all of that. Some of you won't care about that, as instanced by the popularity of Warhammer, where they tell you exactly what models to buy, exactly how to use them, and exactly what their abilities are and what they can and cannot do. Another portion of customization, besides just statting out your characters and how to use them, is whether or not the game requires you to buy their models. And if it requires you to buy their models, that may be a no-go for you. Beyond Warhammer, for me, if a game requires me to buy their own models, I'm just not going to check out that rule set, because I would much rather do a model agnostic game. And number 5 on the list is the lore. Finally, can you get into the backstory of the game? Some games you don't have to get into the backstory, and it's totally fine. Other ones are very heavily backstory driven, such as Warhammer, where they have a very distinct way they want you to play, and you've got characters, and you've got tons of background information. But a lot of games are very background light, and you can make your own narrative, essentially. I am not one that really cares about the lore of a game so much. I don't really get into that. I know a lot of people, like for Warhammer and other games, they love to read the novels and they read the backstory and they go on the Wikipedia and they do all that. To me, that never really did much for me. I know the basics of most of the games that I play, but I'm not going to be able to list every single different demon in D&D. I just have never been able to do that, and I'm really not interested in that. I am much more concerned with customization in my games. But for some people, they have to be able to get into the backstory of the game, and that's where lore comes into play. So there you have it, Kirk. Hopefully some of these filters I've given you will help you determine a game is right or not for you from the get-go, instead of you having to purchase the rule set and all of that. As for the addiction you claim to have over new rule sets, I think a lot of us share that same problem. Hey, but don't feel bad. There are a million games out there, especially with the explosion of Kickstarter and all of that. There's a sea of new games out there, and some of them are good, some of them are not good, and hopefully these filters will help you filter them out before you purchase them. It seems to me like you need to go through all the games you already have and apply this filter to them. Then you can put them in piles of, I'm never going to even try this again, to, hey, this is like the cream of the crop, this is my top 5 games. Boil it down to like a top 5 games that fit your lifestyle, fit what you're into, fit how you like to play, and then try to figure out, you can definitely play 5 different games in your life, but for me, I stick with Warhammer and Brutality. But hopefully, this will help trim down all of your selections. So thank you so much, Kirk, for writing in at letstalktabletopscott@gmail.com. And please, everybody, comment in the comments, like, subscribe, and email us if you have any questions or comments. Now, one thing I would like you to do is tell me a rule system that you did not care for and it immediately turned you off of the game. Such as my bolt action with the dice in a bag, or Malifaux with the card mechanics, things that were just kind of a no-go. I would really be interested to know what mechanics you guys immediately did not care about. Anyway, I'll see you next week.